The moment Tyler Grant heard the words, he felt the air drain from his lungs. "This school is for respectable families," Principal Warren said, his voice sharp and cold. "You don't belong here." Tyler's backpack slipped from his shoulder and landed with a thud, but it was nothing compared to the weight pressing down on his chest. He stood frozen in the office doorway, stunned and humiliated, not because of anything he'd done wrong, but simply because he was the son of a farmer. He wanted to speak up, to shout that his grades were among the best in his class, that he woke up at 4:30 every morning to help his dad feed the livestock before school. But the words caught in his throat. Principal Warren didn't care. His crisp suit and polished desk had already passed judgment. 2 security guards entered the room without a word. "Escort him out," Warren said with a flick of his hand, as if Tyler were nothing more than a stain on the carpet. Down the hallway, students fell silent. Some snickered. Others looked away. And at the far end, Chase Belmont, son of a tech mogul, leaned smugly against a locker. "Back to the barn, hey boy," he muttered, just loud enough for Tyler to hear. Tyler clenched his fists but didn't respond. Not yet. Tyler Grant's walk home that afternoon felt longer than usual. His boots, still caked with morning mud from the pasture, scraped the sidewalk with every step. He kept his eyes on the ground, dreading the moment he would have to face his parents. His mother Linda had always said education was his ticket out of the fields, and his father Hank had worked double shifts just to keep Tyler enrolled at Westbridge Academy. Now all of that effort had been tossed aside because of prejudice, because of pride. When he reached the porch of their weathered farmhouse, both his parents were already waiting. His mother's hands were clasped tightly at her waist, her eyes scanning his face before she whispered, "Tyler, what happened?" "I got expelled," he said, barely able to meet their gaze. "For being me." The words hit harder than he thought they would. Linda gasped, covering her mouth, and Hank, usually a man of few emotions, looked away toward the cornfields, jaw clenched. Then, without a word, he stepped forward and pulled Tyler into a hug, strong, silent, and shaking slightly. That night, Tyler couldn't sleep. He lay staring at the wooden beams of his bedroom ceiling, listening to the distant sound of crickets and the soft rustle of trees in the wind. The sting of humiliation hadn't dulled. It had only deepened. He had worked for everything, never once asked for a handout. And yet, in one swift moment, Principal Warren had stripped him of his dignity. He replayed the scene over and over in his mind. The smirk on Chase Belmont's face, the guards grabbing his arms, the students whispering. The cold, hard certainty that no matter how hard he worked, some people would always see the dirt on his boots before the fire in his heart. "I wish someone would stand up for me," he whispered into the darkness. Just once. At that very moment, miles away, another man was preparing to do just that. A man who hadn't forgotten a promise made decades earlier. A man whose name made boardrooms go silent. And the next morning, as the first rays of sunlight stretched across Westbridge Academy's manicured lawn, a deafening roar broke the stillness. A roar that didn't come from a car or a bus. It came from the sky. The morning sun was just beginning to warm the stone walls of Westbridge Academy when the sky erupted with sound. Students looked up, shielding their eyes as the thunderous blades of a black helicopter sliced through the air. Dust blew across the courtyard as the sleek aircraft descended onto the school's front lawn. Teachers exchanged nervous glances. Phones were whipped out. Whispers turned to gasps. Principal Warren stormed outside, his polished shoes kicking up dirt, his expression red with fury. "Who authorized this?" he barked, struggling to be heard over the deafening roar. "Who do you think you are?" But no one was listening. All eyes were locked on the helicopter door. With a metallic hiss, it swung open, and out stepped a man whose very presence made people go silent. Tall, composed, and dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, the stranger's shoes gleamed under the sunlight. 2 other men followed behind him, dressed similarly. But it was the gold insignia on the helicopter's side that silenced the crowd completely. Stonebridge Agricultural Holdings. Everyone at Westbridge knew that name. It belonged to Clayton Stonebridge, founder and CEO of the largest agricultural corporation in the nation. He wasn't just wealthy. He was legendary. Principal Warren's tone shifted immediately. "Mr. Stonebridge," he said, voice strained with forced politeness, "this is certainly unexpected." Clayton removed his sunglasses and scanned the crowd. His voice cut through the wind like a blade. I'm here for Tyler Grant. A ripple ran through the crowd. The same boy who'd been expelled in shame the day before? Laughter turned to disbelief. Even Chase Belmont, still smug in his varsity jacket, lost his grin. I believe he's no longer enrolled here, Warren stammered. I'm aware, Clayton replied calmly. That's precisely why I'm here. Inside his home, Tyler stood frozen in the doorway as the helicopter's hum shook the windows. His father, Hank, had already stepped outside, stunned. And when Clayton Stonebridge emerged from the aircraft and met Tyler's eyes, the farm boy could barely breathe. The billionaire crossed the yard with purpose and extended a hand. Your father once helped me build something from nothing. Now it's time I return the favor. Tyler's heart pounded. He had no idea why this man had come all this way for him. But as the crowd at Westbridge whispered in awe and Principal Warren stood speechless, Tyler felt something he hadn't felt in days. He mattered. Clayton Stonebridge stood firmly in front of the Grant family's farmhouse, his polished shoes crunching the gravel beneath him. The rising sun cast a golden hue over the fields, but all Tyler could see was the commanding presence of the billionaire before him. You're Tyler Grant, Clayton said, not as a question but a statement. Tyler nodded, his voice caught in his throat. Yes, sir. Clayton turned briefly toward Hank Grant, offering a slight nod. Your father was one of the hardest working men I've ever met. We built my first grain operation together outside Topeka in the late 80s. He believed in honest labor when no one else would lend me a hand. Hank cleared his throat, modest as always. Just did what needed doing. But what happened yesterday, Clayton continued, his voice now heavier, should never have happened. Tyler glanced down, ashamed. They said I didn't belong. That my kind dragged down their reputation. Clayton's jaw tightened. Then we're going to fix that. He turned to his assistant, who was already tapping away on a sleek black tablet. I want a full report on Westbridge Academy's administrative board. Backgrounds, voting patterns, and donation histories. Now. Yes, sir, the assistant replied without missing a beat. Linda Grant, Tyler's mother, looked on in stunned silence. Mr. Stonebridge, what exactly are you doing? Clayton met her eyes with quiet conviction. I don't tolerate injustice. Not when I see potential being thrown away. Then turning back to Tyler, he said with a calm yet firm voice, Get your jacket, son. You're coming with me. Tyler hesitated. Where? Clayton offered a slight smile. Back to school. Didn't feel real. Less than 24 hours ago, Tyler had been dragged out of Westbridge like a criminal. Now a billionaire was standing in his yard, offering him not just redemption but dignity. Hank placed a hand on Tyler's shoulder. You've worked too hard to let him bury your future, son. If this man's offering a hand, take it. Tyler looked back once more at the rusted pickup, the sagging barn, the worn path he'd taken every day to school. Then he turned toward the roaring helicopter blades and nodded. Yes, sir. I'm ready. And as he climbed aboard beside Clayton Stonebridge, he felt it deep in his chest. This was no longer just about him. It was about proving that grit still mattered more than privilege. The sound of helicopter blades roared across the lawn of Westbridge Academy once more. This time the students didn't just glance. They rushed to the windows, to the steps, and into the courtyard, drawn by the thunder overhead. Teachers tried to maintain order, but it was no use. Something extraordinary was happening again, and no one wanted to miss it. As the black helicopter touched down, Principal Warren stood frozen on the front steps. His spine stiffened when he saw who stepped out first, Clayton Stonebridge, flanked by two sharply dressed assistants. The billionaire walked with quiet authority, unbothered by the growing crowd. Behind him came Tyler Grant. Yesterday, the farm boy had been escorted out by security like a criminal. Today, he stood tall beside one of the most powerful men in the country. Principal Warren attempted a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Mr. Stonebridge, to what do we owe this second unexpected visit? Clayton didn't waste a second to correct a mistake. Before Warren could respond, Clayton's voice cut across the courtyard. This school claims to prepare the next generation of leaders. Yet yesterday, it chose to discard one of its brightest simply because of where he comes from. Gasps rippled through the student body. Clayton turned to his assistant. What's the largest donation this school has ever received? $1 million, sir, the man answered without hesitation. Clayton turned back to Principal Warren. I'll donate 10 times that amount, $10 million today. On one condition. Warren's mouth went dry. What condition? Clayton pointed to Tyler. That this young man is reinstated immediately. With a public apology. Warren looked as though he'd swallowed a lemon. The board members whispered nervously behind him, fully aware that such a donation could transform the school for decades. You have 5 seconds, Clayton added calmly, checking his watch. Warren's hesitation cracked under the weight of pressure. Of course, he blurted. This was all a misunderstanding. Tyler Grant is welcome back. The students erupted into whispers and stares, many in disbelief. Some smiled. Others simply looked stunned. Tyler stood motionless, taking it all in, not out of arrogance but awe. He didn't need revenge. He'd just been given something far greater, justice, and a future no one could take from him again. As the last word of the principal's apology hung awkwardly in the air, Clayton Stonebridge gave a subtle nod to his assistant, who immediately stepped forward with a legal folder. The reinstatement paperwork will be delivered to your office by noon, the assistant stated crisply. We expect it to be processed today. Principal Warren, red-faced and visibly sweating, nodded rapidly. Yes, of course. Clayton turned away without another word. The matter, as far as he was concerned, was settled. But as he passed the stunned crowd of students and faculty, his gaze landed on Tyler Grant. The young man stood motionless, still trying to process the whirlwind that had just restored his dignity. This is not just about coming back, Clayton said quietly as he approached him. This is about what comes next. Tyler blinked, unsure of how to respond. Sir. Clayton smiled slightly. Get in the helicopter. We have work to do. Tyler's mother stepped forward, concern etched across her face. Mr. Stonebridge, what are you planning for our son? He met her gaze respectfully. To give him the future he's earned. A moment later, the two climbed into the helicopter once again. This time Tyler didn't look back. The wind from the blades whipped through the trees as they ascended. The school shrank beneath them, along with the judgment and prejudice that had tried to define him. As they leveled out high above the town, Clayton turned to him. Do you know why I'm doing this? Because you knew my father? Tyler asked. Clayton nodded once. That's part of it. But there's more. You remind me of someone I once was, a boy nobody believed in. Someone gave me a chance. Now I'm giving one to you. He handed Tyler a tablet. On the screen were records, his test scores, GPA, teacher notes. You're in the top 1% of the state. They didn't expel you for lack of merit. They did it because of bias. Tyler's throat tightened. He had worked so hard for so long, and now someone finally saw the value in him. Clayton leaned closer. I'm starting a scholarship for students like you. Overlooked, underestimated but full of grit. You'll be the first. For the first time in his life, Tyler felt something greater than hope. He felt purpose. As the helicopter touched down on the rooftop of the gleaming Stonebridge Tower in downtown Chicago, Tyler Grant felt his breath catch in his chest. Just 24 hours earlier, he'd been humiliated and cast out of his school like a stain no one wanted to clean. Now, he was stepping into the heart of an empire built by the man who had defended him before an entire school. Clayton Stonebridge, dressed in a tailored navy suit, led the way through layers of security. Tyler followed, wide-eyed. As they entered a high-rise office filled with floor-to-ceiling windows, digital dashboards, and staff members who bowed their heads slightly as the billionaire passed. You're not just a student anymore, Tyler, Clayton said, his voice calm but firm. You're an apprentice. Tyler turned toward him, still stunned. Why me? Clayton stopped at a glass door marked Executive Training Suite and looked him square in the eye. Because I see myself in you. When I was 17, I was just a janitor's son. I was told I'd never amount to anything. But someone took a chance on me. And I built this. He gestured toward the skyline, where Stonebridge Enterprises cast a shadow over the financial district. I'm giving you access to something most people spend a lifetime trying to earn: real experience. You'll learn finance, leadership, logistics, and strategy from the top minds in this building. Tyler's voice was barely a whisper. I I don't know what to say. Clayton placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Say you won't waste it. There was a long pause. Then Tyler nodded. I won't. For the first time in his life he felt not just seen but chosen. As they entered the suite, Tyler saw a long table lined with tablets, charts, and staff preparing for a private workshop. Clayton leaned closer. This is only the beginning, son. We're going to turn potential into legacy. And with that, Tyler stepped forward, not as a charity case or a kid from the farm, but as the future Clayton Stonebridge believed in. As Tyler Grant stepped into the executive training suite of Stonebridge Enterprises, he couldn't help but think of the dirt beneath his fingernails just the morning before. Farming had been his life. So had proving himself. And now, surrounded by polished chrome, illuminated strategy boards, and professionals with years of experience, Tyler didn't feel like he was out of place. He felt like he'd finally arrived where he was meant to be. The moment felt surreal. Clayton Stonebridge stood at the front of the room, arms crossed, studying the young man with a gaze sharp enough to cut glass. Tell me something, Tyler, he said. Do you know what separates potential from legacy? Tyler hesitated, then shook his head. Opportunity, Clayton answered. And someone brave enough to take it. He motioned toward a screen and suddenly a presentation began, detailing not just company revenue projections and logistics, but also the new initiative, the Grant Scholars Program. Tyler's jaw dropped as his name appeared on the screen, bold and unmistakable. You'll be the first, Clayton said. But not the last. He went on to explain that the program would identify rural students across America, farmers' children, sons and daughters of laborers, kids who had the brains and drive, but were invisible to institutions obsessed with legacy and wealth. We're going to find them, Clayton continued. We're going to lift them. Because America's future won't be built by privilege, it'll be built by persistence. Tyler felt emotion rising in his chest. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was about the dozens, maybe hundreds of other Tyler Grants out there who just needed someone to believe in them. He looked around the room filled with top executives, all nodding in agreement, ready to mentor and shape the next generation. For the first time in his life, Tyler understood the power of standing up. Not just for yourself, but for others like you. He wasn't just back in school. He was rewriting the rules. As the sun began to set over the city skyline, Tyler Grant looked out from the floor-to-ceiling windows of the 42nd floor at Stonebridge Enterprises. Below, the streets bustled with people chasing dreams. Just a day ago, he'd been tossed aside by a principal who saw only his worn-out boots and calloused hands. Now he was in a place where vision, not family name, mattered. Clayton Stonebridge stood beside him, silent for a moment, then said, People will try to define you by your roots, but only you get to decide where you grow. Tyler smiled. I thought getting back into school would be enough. But this is more. It is, Clayton nodded. This is about creating the kind of world that once denied you. As they walked back into the boardroom, a group of executives stood to applaud. Not because of his name, but because of his grit. In that moment, Tyler knew his life had changed. But more importantly, he realized he was now part of something greater. Something that would change the lives of others just like him. Sometimes the doors that slam in your face are the ones that push you toward something far bigger than you imagined. Don't let rejection define you. Let it redirect you. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful real-life stories that inspire and uplift. Hit the bell icon so you never miss the next one. Your next moment of hope might be just one story away.